was the most powerful Atlantic storm in years. A hurricane 500 kilometres in diameter with winds of over 300 kilometres an hour. In September 2017, Hurricane Irma caused massive destruction across the Lesser Antilles in the Caribbean. Amongst the worst hit the island of St Martin. It is a tiny island of just 87 square kilometres, divided in fact in two. The south belongs to the Netherlands, the north to France, and it was the French part which was the worst affected. Despite these images, the human toll relatively low, just 11 people killed. But the damage was huge, 95% of buildings destroyed. No water, no electricity, no communications. And all that amid widespread looting. It left residents feeling abandoned.
We're as French as anyone else. We really need help. No one's here.
I really don't know what the government is doing. We're asking for help in every single neighbourhood. These poor people need help. Sooner or later, you have to understand that people are getting angry.
A year after the catastrophe, St Martin has lost nearly 8,000 inhabitants, 20% of the population. Those who could afford to move and settle elsewhere, well, they left. Reconstruction is incredibly slow. Tourism, which was the main industry, is at a standstill. Still then, many inhabitants living in the ruins of their former lives. Julie Dungelhoeff and Chris Moore revisit St Martin for France 24.
Changed, the bedroom, everything gone. The doors, I was like, where was it? I didn't even find the remnants of the door. That day, the 5th of September 2017, I was standing in my kitchen and I saw these birds. They call them man of war. They are blackbird, a lot of them. And they keep going in the direction, that's the direction where the hurricane came from. My mother and my grandmother would tell us, on Oran Bay there's a hole, we call it the chateau.
When the sea go off and she turn over and come in, she go inside of that long hole. But when she's coming out, you hear a big, tremendous noise.
In a hurricane, you can always tell it gets louder and louder.
Irma was the worst hurricane I has ever seen in 90 years. St. Martin must come back. This is our island. This is what belongs to us.
The aptly named sandy ground, a slither of land between sea and lagoon. It's here on the French side of this little island that Hurricane Irma hit hardest. And 1 year on, the houses and streets are much as it left them. Barely a building survived unscathed.
All these things gotta be picked up. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be done here in Senegal. Lots of work to be done here.
Former district leader George Richardson is 67 and has lived here all his life. He runs an association that helps the marginalised.
Senegal has always been a district that when to come to the local authorities have been always left for the last.
35,000 people live on the French side of an island which lived through colonialism and slavery. Sandy ground is home to immigrants from across the Caribbean. Most here live off basic benefits. Work is often over the border on the Dutch side. This is a transient population on the sidelines of the system.
We can't get insurance for our homes down here because we don't have the title for our land. And that was is making the problem. You got people living down here over 70 years.
When Irma struck, 60% of households here were uninsured. With cyclone season once again upon them, residents are digging into their own pockets or relying on charity to patch up their homes.
What's it, my brother? Everything all right? Okay, man.
Here, conversations are in English, rules in French.
This country is not an independent country that everybody could do what they want. We got to listen to France. If we want the money from France, we got to listen to France. That's the situation here in St. Martin, because we just don't know our rights. We can't speak the French good. So everybody that comes in that can speak the French, they realize we're not speaking the French and they turn us around.
So every time I go to the office, always busy. Always busy. So I don't depend on the world, I depend on God. Period.
The future here is uncertain. Paris has declared sandy ground an at-risk area. And the fear is the local government will now call time on construction. Officials want to see an end to homes like this one, close to the water, already flimsy, and now hurricane damaged.
The patio was totally destroyed. This is all debris from Irma. All that was carried by the sea.
Maribel comes from the Dominican Republic and was evacuated at the last minute as Irma stormed in.
Thank God I'm alive. That's the most important thing. If I stayed here, I'd have been killed.
Now home alone with her dogs, Maribel used to spend her days working menial jobs in hotels.
Everything here depends on tourism. But since the disaster, the few visitors that have come have done so just to see the level of destruction. Without tourism, we'll all suffer.
With historic industries like salt production long gone, islanders are almost entirely dependent on tourism. Visitors arrive here on the Dutch side aboard international flights or the huge cruise liners that dock in Phillipsburg's deepwater port. On the capital's seafront, Irma seems a distant memory.
Our main income is from the cruise ships, which we have because in the season we have up to like minimum 6 ships, maximum maybe 9 ships in one day. So we cater to more than 10 to 20,000 people in a day. Basically, if you come to St. Martin, you can guarantee you're going to have a good time.
In 2010, the Dutch side of the island became a constituent country of the Netherlands. Unlike the French part, it's outside the EU. Big tourist infrastructure, permissive nightlife, and low-tax shopping pull in the crowds, most of them from the United States.
So far it's been beautiful. Nothing but beautiful beaches, nice people like my man Lenny here.
No, and if you don't get it from Lenny, you don't get it from Annie.
How close to back to normal do you feel you are?
Well, I'll say about like 60%, man. You know, at least a 60-70%. Yeah. They're taking a little more time on the French side. I don't know if it's because of the French government and all that, but it's taking a little more time. It's like nothing's being done.
The Dutch part of the island boasts a GDP twice that of its neighbour. The rivalry between the two goes back centuries. The French side once counted on visitors crossing the open border in search of gastronomy and relaxation. But a year after Irma, the streets of the capital, Marigot, just 11 kilometres from Phillipsburg, are quiet. Bénédicte has lived here since the 1980s. She's what's known as a métro, someone originally from mainland France.
That one's closed, that one I've completely restored, and the one over there's shut.
Thanks to insurance money, Bénédicte and her husband reopened their boutique just 2 months after Irma. But they remain angry at those involved in the lawlessness that followed the hurricane.
If it hadn't been for the looting, everything would have gone quicker. The looting was hellish.
It killed us.
The whole street behind us was looted, and so was this shop. And the ones over there was nothing left.
It was horrible, like a war zone.
With tourists absent, the couple are relying on local customers, who by and large have less money to spend.
Here's the truth. How many sales have we made today?
5 sales.
Bénédicte meets her friend Isabelle, who's returned from Canada.
There's hardly any flats left here, and the ones that are, they've doubled the prices.
Isabelle left after Irma, like 8,000 others with the means to do so.
The island will recover little by little.
The problem is the hotels are all still closed. And the cruise line passengers, well, we never see them.
They don't come to Marigot.
The people who lived here are all gone. Look at Isabel. She went. Does it look like there's anyone here?
There's widespread frustration here that life is yet to return to normal. Much of the criticism is directed at the authorities, both local and in mainland France. After Irma, Paris promised at least 500 million euros in aid. But the president here says most of that was spent on the relief operation rather than reconstruction.
I did receive 50 million for public services, 15 million to repair schools, and 6 million for housing. Is it enough? No, it's not. But that's what we've got. Either you have money to rebuild, or you pick up your suitcase and go looking for it. I've been going to conferences, trying to attract investors to bring more hotels here. How can you expect somewhere that lives 95% from tourism to function if there are no more rooms?
In 2007, Saint-Martin became a French overseas collectivity after voting for more autonomy over its affairs and, crucially, taxes. This is Paris's man in charge of reconstruction in France's hurricane-hit Caribbean islands. He's assessing the recovery ahead of a scheduled visit by French President Emmanuel Macron.
Watch where you put your feet. You see? It's quite striking, isn't it?
Monsieur Gustin says that for the autonomous government here, rights come with responsibilities.
The state can do many things, but it can't be a substitute for the collectivity, which has the means for reconstruction, if not necessarily the equipment. Most tourists won't come here unless the island is clean. If there are still wrecked cars on every street corner, a lot of work still needs to be done. And that's the collectivity's responsibility, to get the island going in the right direction economically.
The collectivity is hoping 800 of a possible 1,300 hotel rooms will be available for the next tourist season. It starts in November. It seems like a tall order, but the island's holiday and building industries have swung into action.
Don't touch the barriers. We don't want anybody getting in there.
Yeah, we'll just have to look out if it starts getting windy.
In Grand Case, Jean-Francois is rebuilding his hotel. He wants it to be more resistant in the face of ever stronger hurricanes. After 25 years here, he says he never considered leaving, despite the wreckage.
We're experienced. This is our 9th cyclone. Why would we give up? Look at this. It's the most beautiful spot in the world.
Supplies have been a problem, with everything arriving slowly by boat. But for some locals, this has been a rare opportunity to find a job.
We have 100 people working for us. We've done a lot of hiring. Mainly locals from the island who weren't necessarily in the industry before. And we have a more experienced staff who are helping them learn the building trade.
I had no choice. There's no more kitchen work. Us young people want to work. We don't want to sit around doing nothing.
Most of the builders at the hotel come from sandy ground. We head back there to meet Jeremy. He's well known in these streets thanks to his rap outfit, Mad Twos.
We're gonna fly away. So what's going on here, man? What up, man? Yo, sandy ground, wanna say the girls them, why? Wicked summertime!
Jeremy returned to Saint-Martin after 7 years in the US, where he got into gangs and ended up in jail. He says the neighborhood's reputation hasn't changed.
They say sandy ground's a bad neighborhood, that if you come here, people will rob you. All kinds of stories.
Let's go.
These days, Jeremy runs a charity for the area's young. It helps out with homework, produces a local magazine, and repairs bikes. They're the only way to get to school for some of these children.
We're fixing all the bikes. We're going to tell Elvis to go for it and fix it, okay? You got a bicycle?
Jeremy says his work is all about putting sandy ground on the map.
We want to show that we exist, that we're part of the Caribbean. Everything we do is about creating our identity.
On essaie de créer notre identité, tu vois. Comme vous voyez, ça c'est un des murs.
This is one of the walls we painted with the kids.
Irma a juste montré la réalité de ce qu'on vivait avant.
Irma just exposed the reality of what we were already living. Maybe we lost, but we didn't lose much, because we didn't have much in the first place. The future is to get over the idea that this is a problem neighborhood. Since I got back, we've worked and worked. I haven't taken a day's holiday, but everything we do comes from the heart.
Irma laid bare the contrast that exists on this remote speck of land. Slowly but surely, tourists are returning, and locals rebuilding lives, homes and hotels. But the threat of another hurricane is never far away.
Julie Dungelhoeff and Chris Moore revisiting St Martin for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition. Don't forget, of course, you can catch it and the previous editions as well on our website at france24.com. More news in just a moment. Thanks for watching.